Hello and welcome to Lessons Online, English for Philosophy students. I'm setting my timer. And we are currently doing Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. We are in lesson number 4, and this is our third time speaking of lesson number 4. So we are on lesson 16 of our overall book. Here we go. Last week, we began a section called Many Good Games. And a game is an activity. And we were looking for an alternative to the voice of critical self-consciousness in our heads. We are trying to find where the flaws are in the argument of the critical voice in our head. We began by considering the fact that the words success and failure are two binary, on, off. The truth is, life is not pass fail. Our value as human beings and the value of anything we do is much more nuanced than just success or failure. There are, as we said, vital degrees and gradations of success and failure. And so we need to understand that it's not true that we are either a success because we are the best at something or else we are a failure. And failure is the default condition. That is not true. Now we are moving on to the next paragraph, attempting to answer the question, where are the flaws in the message of our voice of critical self-consciousness? So let us see. So we're beginning lesson 16. And it's number 3 of 4. Okay. To begin with, there is not just one game at which to succeed or fail. There are many games, and more specifically, many good games. Games that match your talents, involve you productively with other people, and sustain and even improve themselves across time. Lawyer is a good game. So is plumber, physician, carpenter, or school teacher. The world allows for many ways of being. If you don't succeed at one, you can try another. You can pick something better matched to your unique mix of strengths, weaknesses, and situation. Furthermore, if changing games does not work, you can invent a new one. I recently watched a talent show featuring a mime who taped his mouth shut and did something ridiculous with oven mitts. That was unexpected. That was original. It seemed to be working for him. Okay, let's go back to the top. Remember, the word game simply means activity. If an American says, "What's your game?" they really mean, what is your profession? What do you do which makes you unique? Are you a lawyer? Are you a plumber? Are you a salesman? So, to begin with, now here is our transition. We are critiquing the message of the internal critic. The first critique is that the use of the words success and failure are too binary. He is now going in to talk about why the system is not binary. So this is a support to the idea that the system is too binary, which was the thesis of last week's final paragraph. So, to begin with, suggests there will be more support other than the piece of support he is giving now. Support of the idea that the binary system is inadequate. Why is it inadequate? Well, to begin with, there is not just one game at which to succeed or fail. So you are not a success or a failure based on your piano playing. You're not Mozart. So are you a failure? Well, maybe you're a great teacher of something or a great lawyer. You can switch games. So this binary system is inadequate because it does not make room for the fact that there are many areas of competence that you can have or fail at. So, to begin with, there's not just one game at which to succeed or fail. There are many games, and more specifically, many good games. Games that match your talents, involve you productively with other people, and sustain and even improve themselves across time. So, improve themselves, it's referring to the game. In other words, it was good to be a doctor, a medical doctor, in the Middle Ages, but it's better now because now we understand about germs and antibiotics, and we have X-ray machines and MRIs, and we have medicines that really work. So the game of medicine has gotten better over time. Okay? So the games can even improve over time. Also, they will involve you productively with other people. That's a good thing. Many of the games do that. So, there are great opportunities, is the point. Almost an infinite number of good opportunities that can match your unique talents. So, supporting this, you can be a lawyer, you can be a plumber, you can be a physician, you can be a carpenter, you can be a school teacher. The world allows for many ways of being. Notice the capital B. When you have a capital in the middle of a word for no reason, it makes the word itself more transcendent. So it's not just, there's a lot of things you can be, little b. It's, there are many ways of being in a more transcendent sense of having meaning in your life. If you don't succeed at one, you can try another. So if you fail, that doesn't mean you are a failure. It means you haven't found the right game yet, maybe. We have a phrase that we teach to children in America. If at first you don't succeed, try again. We have children repeat this. If at first you don't succeed, try again. The try is repeated to imply that you may have to try many times before you succeed. We teach that to children here. So, if you don't succeed at one, you can try another. You can pick something better matched to your unique mix of strengths, weaknesses, and situation. So you select your choice individually in a free country, not in a socialist utopia or communist utopia like Russia, where they tell you what to do, or China. In a free country, you can pick something to do that is better matched, that matches your unique mix of strengths and weaknesses and situation. For example, you may be very, very good at playing the bass. That's your strength. Your weakness may be you're not very good at manual labor, and your situation is you are young and you have no wife and no children and no debt. You don't owe money to anyone. You are free. All you need is enough food to live on. Well, with that mix, it's okay to try being in a band. Or maybe your situation is that you have a wife and 5 children. At that point, you may look at a different strength. Maybe you also have a strength with numbers, and you can go and be a bookkeeper or an accountant. You choose something that matches your strengths and weaknesses and situation in a free country. Furthermore, a conjunction that means something similar is coming. More support of the same thing. Furthermore, if changing games does not work, you can invent a new one. Okay, so if changing games does not work, for example, maybe you have 5 children and a wife. You must have a certain amount of money, and you need a college degree to go to another field. Well, maybe you can invent a whole new game. Maybe you know how to do a certain thing that people will pay money to see, and no one has ever done it before. You can try that. And he gives an example. I recently watched a talent show featuring a mime. A mime is a person who acts out messages without speech. He taped his mouth shut, so he put tape over his mouth, and did something ridiculous with oven mitts. Those are the pieces of cloth that you put on your hands to take a hot pan out of the stove, out of the oven. That was unexpected. So it's a new game. It's a new talent. It's a new way to become famous. It was original, meaning it was his idea, and it seemed to be working for him. If we say, does that work for you? It means, are you achieving your goal? Do you like it? Is it working for you? Okay, so let us move on to the next paragraph. Before we move on, I quickly want to think about our outline of where the argument is going. We are looking for flaws in the logic of the guy saying, you're a failure, your life has no meaning. The first flaw is that it's too binary, success or failure, and more information about that flaw is that it's too binary because there are many games to succeed or fail at. Let's see where we're going now. I need a new color. All right, it's also unlikely that you are playing only one game. Okay, also is our transition word. We need to figure out where we are here. I'm sorry. Okay, so if this is the idea that we are speaking of, where are the flaws? This will be point A, 2 binary. This will be A1, and over here we are at A2. Okay, so where are the flaws in the message? First flaw, the use of the words success and failure. Why is that bad? Number one, it doesn't take into consideration the multiplicity of games. Second, it doesn't take into consideration the fact that it is unlikely that you are only playing one game at a time. So you are not only a lawyer or only a musician. You are a lawyer and a musician and a husband and a father and a student and maybe a player of basketball. You are competing in many realms at once. So this system, this message up here is flawed because it says success or failure, which is is too narrow, doesn't take into consideration other games, and doesn't take into consideration the fact that you are playing more than one game. So let's read the whole thing. It's also unlikely that you're playing only one game. You have a career and friends and family members and personal projects and artistic endeavors and athletic pursuits. You might consider judging your success across all the games you play. Imagine that you are very good at some, middling at others, and terrible at the remainder. Perhaps that's how it should be. You might object, I should be winning at everything. But winning at everything might only mean you're not doing anything new or difficult. You might be winning, but you're not growing. And growing might be the most important form of winning. Should victory in the present always take precedence over a trajectory across time? Okay, let's look at this. So, the internal critic is wrong because he speaks only in terms of success and failure. And success itself is nuanced, and you have multiple games at which to succeed or fail. It is unlikely that you are playing only one game. You are definitely playing many games. For example, so this is our thesis, and we are now going to support it with an example. The example is, you have a career, so a job. Friends, are you a good friend or a bad friend? Family members, are you a good father? Are you a good son? Are you a good brother? And personal projects. Maybe you are rebuilding the engine of your car to save $1,000. And artistic endeavors. Maybe you have learned to paint. And athletic pursuits. Maybe you play football every Saturday. You might consider judging your success across all the games you play. So remember, we are talking about the internal critic who judges us based on you are either a success or a failure globally. Well, maybe you should tell him he is wrong and judge yourself as an average of your success in many areas. Maybe. Because that critic is judging you globally on one area alone. Imagine that you are very good at some, middling at others, so sort of good, and terrible at the remainder. So you're only good at a few things. Perhaps, maybe, that is how it should be. If that is how it should be, then you, globally, are a success. If you are very good at some, okay at others, and terrible at the rest. If that is the profile of a healthy, growing person, then you are a success, in spite of what that demeaning critic says in your head when he looks at one failure. You might object. Now, when you object, and then there's this colon here, the objection follows. So you could consider it to be in quotation marks. You are saying, you are objecting to my point that that is the way it should be. You're a success. You're arguing against yourself now. You are saying, I should be winning at everything. Okay, maybe you object by saying, I should be winning at everything. Making myself some room here. You say, I should be winning at everything. Now he is going to argue back at you and take apart your objection. He says, but winning at everything might only mean that you're not doing anything new or difficult. You might be winning, but you're not growing. And growing might be the most important form of winning. So, your objection, I should be winning at everything. Let me do this. I should be winning at everything. That objection is not valid. Because if you are winning at everything, then you're not growing. If you're winning at everything, it's too easy. If I went back to 5th grade, I would get all A's. But I would not be learning or growing. And what good would my success be if everything is too easy? No, it is more likely that if you are very good at some, middling at others, and terrible at the remainder, that's how it should be. In other words, you are a success. Question: should victory in the present always take precedence over trajectory across time? This question is an attack on the idea that you should be winning at everything. Obviously, winning in the present might be good, but if you always win and never grow over time, then maybe you are not a very valuable person. Maybe growing is more important than winning in the present. Let us move to our next paragraph. Finally, okay, so probably we are now, I'm going to go back to blue here. That was number 2. This will be number 3. In our outline, why is the binary system not good? Well, to begin with, there's not just one game at which to succeed. There are many games. Secondly, you are not playing only one game. And finally, you might come to realize that the specifics of the many games you are playing are so unique to you, so individual, that comparison to others is simply inappropriate. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and give this green. Here we have it. Finally, you might come to realize that the specifics of the many games you are playing are so unique to you, so individual, that comparison to others is simply inappropriate. That's the final thesis of the idea of why the criterion of success versus failure is an inappropriate criterion, which is an answer to our question, what's wrong with the message? What's wrong? Where are the flaws in the message? Okay? Let's read the paragraph. Let me get back in here. Make sure I'm in green. Okay, finally, you might come to realize that the specifics of the many games you are playing are so unique to you, so individual, that comparison to others is simply inappropriate. Perhaps you are overvaluing what you don't have and undervaluing what you do have. There's some real utility in gratitude. It's also good protection against the dangers of victimhood and resentment. Your colleague outperforms you at work. His wife, however, is having an affair, while your marriage is stable and happy. Who has it better? The celebrity you admire is a chronic drunk driver and a bigot. Is his life truly preferable to yours? Okay, let's look at it. The specifics of the many games you are playing is unique to you and individual, so comparisons to others is inappropriate. In English, we have a phrase, you can't compare apples and oranges. Or you might say, that's like comparing apples and oranges. Or you might even say, that's apples and oranges. What it means is, you cannot take two things which are different and compare them as though they were in a competition together, because an orange may be a very good orange, but a very good orange is a very bad apple, and a very good apple is a very bad orange. And if you try to say, well, which is a better piece of fruit, there is no comparison unless you set up an arbitrary standard of value. So when you look at you, maybe you are a student of Olavo, maybe you are a lawyer, maybe you are a father, maybe you are a brother, maybe you love to play soccer and hate to do any artwork, maybe. You cannot compare you to another person who is different in every area. Your set is unique. You're an apple. Everybody else is a different piece of fruit. Perhaps you are overvaluing what you don't have and undervaluing what you do have. When I look at someone and I envy them, maybe I don't see the downsides of their life. I only see the one area that is admirable or enviable. Maybe that person looks at me and envies me for something different. There's some real utility in gratitude. Utility means usefulness. So he is saying, being grateful for what you have has intrinsic value, real value, significant value. It is significantly valuable to be grateful for what you have. Do not undervalue what you have. Once my mother told me a story to illustrate this. She said, and this is not a true story, this is fanciful. A woman came to Jesus Christ, or maybe she came to God, and said, "My cross is too heavy. Can I exchange it for a different cross to bear?" We think of a cross as the difficult thing in your life. Maybe you have cancer, or your husband has cancer, or you have a hair lip, or something's wrong with you. That's your cross to bear. She came to God and said, "I don't ask you to take away my cross, just give me a different one." So God said, "Fine, through that door over there is a storage room with all of the crosses. You can go in there, leave your cross, and pick up any cross you want and carry it back out. Whatever." So the woman went in and she looked over all of the crosses that everybody in the world had to bear. And when she came out with her same cross. And my mother finished the story by saying, when you see another girl that you think has a wonderful life, realize that you don't really know what cross she has to bear. You cannot just change one piece of your life. You have to get the whole thing. And everybody pretty much has strengths and weaknesses in their allotment of blessings. So, gratitude has some real utility. Gratitude is, I'm saying gratitude is the reference of this word it. Gratitude is also good protection against the dangers of victimhood and resentment. Victimhood does not mean you really are a victim. It means you think you are a victim and you become resentful. Being grateful for what you have protects you against the bad mental consequence of believing yourself to be a victim and becoming resentful. Here are some examples. Your colleague outperforms you at work, so he is better than you at the job. But his wife, I say but we say however means but. His wife, however, is having an affair, so she is with another man, while your marriage is stable and happy. So he is better at work, but he is worse at home. You are better at home. So who has it better? The guy who's better at work or the guy who's better at home? I mean, the point is each one has a unique mix and you cannot compare to one another directly. Another example, the celebrity that you admire is a chronic drunk driver and a bigot. So he's a celebrity and famous, so he's above you. But he's a drunk driver and a bigot, and you're not. So which of you is better? The point is, you really cannot compare people. Each person is a unique blend and not comparable to another person. Is his life truly preferable to yours? That's the question. Let us move on to the next section. When the internal critic puts you down using such comparisons, here is how it operates. First, it selects a single arbitrary domain of comparison, fame maybe, or power. Then, it acts as if that domain is the only one that is relevant. Then it contrasts you unfavorably with someone truly stellar within, someone truly stellar within that domain. It can take that final step even further, using the unbridgeable gap between you and its target of comparison as evidence for the fundamental injustice of life. That way, your motivation to do anything at all can be most effectively undermined. Those who accept such an approach to self-evaluation certainly can't be accused of making things too easy for themselves, but it's just as big a problem to make things too difficult. Okay, so we are still critiquing the message of the internal critic. We are finding flaws. So this paragraph sort of sums up how this internal critic does a bad job of representing reality. When the internal critic puts you down means makes it seem like you are a bad person. Puts you down means insults you. Insult. Using such comparisons. Now, such is our transition word. It goes back up to this paragraph. Comparisons of things which are unlike. Okay? Comparisons like the ones in this paragraph saying who is better, whose life is preferable. The answer is the comparison is not just. But when the internal critic uses a comparison like this to insult you and put you down, this is how he's doing it. Here's how it operates. First, it, meaning the internal critic, selects a single arbitrary domain of comparison, fame or power, or how well you play the piano, or how good a lawyer you are. One area. Then it acts as if that domain is the only one that is relevant. If you are a success at playing the piano, you're worth something. If not, you're at the bottom. You're a failure. It acts as if. It doesn't come out and state it. It makes this the assumption, unexamined assumption. It acts as if that domain is the only one that is relevant. It's like, who cares about anything else? Then it contrasts you unfavorably with someone truly stellar. So it doesn't contrast you with your brother at the piano who had the same teacher and the same opportunity for practice. No, it contrasts you with Mozart. It doesn't contrast you with regard to business with normal people from your class in school. It contrasts you with Steve Jobs, someone truly stellar within that domain. It can take that final step even further by using the unbridgeable gap between you and the target of comparison as evidence for the fundamental injustice of life. So, you are not Mozart, so you're a failure, you're at the bottom. And it is not your fault. Life is unfair, and you are a victim and should be resentful. It's attempting to make you think you are a victim, make you be resentful, and make you think life is meaningless. There is no reason to do anything. That way, your motivation to do anything can be most effectively undermined. You believe life is meaningless. If life is meaningless, there is no reason to act. Those who accept such an approach to self-evaluation can't be accused of making things too easy for themselves, but it's just as big a problem to make things too difficult. Okay, so the internal critic probably says, if you do not believe me, you are just making a positive lie for yourself. You are making life easy. You are pretending that Mozart never existed, Steve Jobs never existed, so that you can feel good about yourself. You are making it easy. You are making it easy for you to feel like a success, but really you are a failure. So, people who accept this false view of success and failure, they cannot be accused of making things too easy, but actually they are making things too difficult, which is just as bad. Let us read one more paragraph. We'll go back to blue again. When we are very young, we are neither individual nor informed. We have not had the time or gained the wisdom to develop our own standards. In consequence, we must compare ourselves to others, because standards are necessary. Without them, there is nowhere to go and nothing to do. As we mature, we become, by contrast, increasingly individual and unique. The conditions of our lives become more and more personal and less comparable to those of others. Symbolically speaking, this means we must leave the house ruled by our Father and confront the chaos of our individual being. We must take note of our disarray without completely abandoning that Father in the process. We must then rediscover the values of our culture, veiled from us by our ignorance, hidden in the dusty treasure trove of the past, rescue them, and integrate them into our own lives. This is what gives existence its full and necessary meaning. This is a great paragraph. I'm not sure if we will have time to do it fully, but we'll start. When we are very young, we are neither individual nor informed. Okay, in the last paragraph it said we cannot compare ourselves to other people because we are individuals. So comparison is not justified, not possible. Here, when we are very young, we are not individual. We have not had time nor gained wisdom to develop our own standards. Okay, so in the previous paragraph, we were challenged to understand that we could not compare ourselves to other people because other people, every person is good at some things and bad at others in an individual mix. And also, we don't want to compare ourselves to Mozart because he's super good at one thing, but he died young and a pauper because he had substance abuse problems and moral problems and mental problems. So you cannot compare two people. You must develop a standard of value within yourself. And that standard of value in this paragraph, it's giving us some idea of where that standard of value comes from. So, there is a need for a child to, over time, develop an understanding of a true standard of value and of success and failure and everything in between. So, because we have not had time and do not have the wisdom to develop our own standards, we must compare ourselves to others. So, in consequence, We must compare ourselves to others because standards are necessary. That is why in school you have to get an A in math to prove you are good at math. Children must be compared with each other to identify areas of strength because standards are a necessary part of reality and being. Without them, meaning without standards, there is nowhere to go and nothing to do. Children will not study to learn their math if there is not a test and a value in passing it. As we mature, we become, by contrast, increasingly individual and unique. The contrast is between young me and mature me. So, when I'm young, I must compare myself to others because there is no other standard of comparison. When I'm mature, I have had time to become individual and unique. The conditions of my life will be more and more personal and less comparable to those of others. Okay, now here's the new part. Symbolically speaking, this means we must leave the house ruled by our Father and confront the chaos of our individual being. The house of our Father is order. He sets up rules with rewards for obeying them and punishments for disobeying them. And life has order and meaning according to the rules of our Father's house. And we can say, I am a good boy because I ate my food fully at the table. Or I am a good boy because I did not tell a lie. But eventually we must leave the house of our Father and confront the chaos of our individual being. Now I am a good man because I am a good husband and a good father. I am an okay provider of money for my family. I'm not rich, but I'm not poor. I'm okay. I am terrible at music. I am okay at games, sports, etc. But I am a good father and a good husband, maybe. So we must confront the chaos of our own individuality and set our own standards of value. Without, it may be that our Father would say, you must earn money to be a good man. And we may say, I must be a good father to be a good man, even if I earn less money. Our own standards. We must take note, that means notice or see, our disarray, so our chaotic craziness of not knowing what's happening, without completely abandoning that Father in the process. Father is now order. Father is the values we have been given from childhood. So maybe our Father taught us the 10 Commandments. Do not lie, do not steal, do not cheat, do not commit adultery, honor your father and mother, honor God, do not take the name of the Lord in vain, honor the Sabbath. We can't completely throw those out. We must rediscover the values of our culture, represented by our Father's teaching, veiled from us by our ignorance. We are born ignorant. As a young person, we are ignorant. Hidden in the dusty treasure trove of the past. This is why we should read old books, discover transcendent values. We must rescue them, the transcendent values. Rescue them from the dusty books that no one has read and bring them out and put them in our lives. We must integrate them into our own lives. This is what gives existence its full and necessary meaning. This is how we become a good person, a person who we ourselves name as good. So we are out of time. So that's the end of this one. And I will see you next week for Who Are You? Thank you very much.